I'm Danny Otto. Welcome into another episode of That Recap Show. Now, before we get into the episode, just wanted to issue major spoiler alert. We are going to be going over everything that happened in the season finale of the Moon Knight series. So if you haven't checked that out yet, you may want to pause this video, head over to Disney Plus, watch that, and then come back and enjoy the breakdown. Now, with that out of the way, let's start the show.
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.
Break down everything from the season finale of the Moon Knight series. It's Jon Jon Rico.
Hi.
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 I am saying season finale until I am proven wrong because they redid a tweet. I am going to die on that hill until I get told otherwise. Awesome.
Yeah.
That's the best way to describe this. I'm going to kick us off. But what I'm going to kick us off with is me first saying that I was wrong. I was
You lose.
big proponent that I thought we were going to get some sort of mention of gore or someone killing gods in the post-credit scene to the finale. Like, I knew we were going to have a post-credit scene. There was no way we weren't. But I was really banking on, like, there was a chance we were going to hear gore.
Samsonite. I was way off.
There was no chance. I was way off.
Zero.
But we will talk about the post-credit scene as we get deeper into this video. But instant reactions, I mean, the episode was great. I have a couple of references I've got to talk about, but overall, I really liked it. And I've already spoken to a couple of people that had, mixed thoughts about it, but I'm really hoping that we get another season because there are so many places that they can go with this. And I am so excited for what this character could be into the future, basically. And what some of these other characters could end up happening with down the line. And I'm being very vague because I don't want to get into our predictions and I don't want to get into big takeaways right away. References. I may have been the only one who heard this, but when we had the biggest battle scene and we had, gods fighting and Moon Knight fighting, all I could hear was the original Power Rangers theme. That was just like in the back of my head. I was like, "Go go Power Rangers! Go go Power Rangers!" I thought it was perfect. The other one was you and I both play Fortnite. Maybe not everybody who's watching plays Fortnite, but recently they did have a big thing about the Moon Knight skins. Not only Moon Knight, but you got Mr. Knight. And you got to play as them if you bought the skins. There's a scene where, Moon Knight is flying, which I'll get more into in takeaways. But at one point, he turns back into Mr. Knight, who has no cape, who's not flying. And he goes like this, and the trajectory is like exactly what it looks like when you first dive out of...
When you dive bomb off the battle bus.
Yes. It was like perfect. I was like, someone did this on purpose. Someone
That's pretty funny.
Like played Fortnite and knew that this looked exactly like it. Because it's a blink and you miss it part. But
That's
for me,
really
it was
funny.
just like, as soon as you told me they were available, I was like, well, I got to buy these now. And so I had to play as Mr. Knight. And yeah, it like I said, it's a blink and you miss it. And if you don't play Fortnite anyway, you don't get that reference. But it was just perfect. So those were my two real references for the finale. Mainly because I don't want to take away from all of the really cool stuff that we got in this finale. And before I get into too much, Rico, what were some of your instant reactions for the finale?
Yeah, like you said, it's almost hard to talk about it without getting into the kind of the meaty details that we're going to talk about in a little bit. But I thought this wrapped everything up in a pretty solid way. We got some of the stuff that we wanted to see from the episodes we talked about before. We didn't get some of the stuff that we talked about before. Sorry, Danny. But I saw a lot of complaints on this show about the lack of, I guess, Moon Knight for all intents and purposes. We only saw Mark in the suit only a couple times, and the first couple of times they weren't very long parts of the episode. But this episode gave us quite a bit of it, and I thought we got a really solid action sequence out of it. It kind of speaks to the point of how Marvel is not always going to do like these straightforward action-based superhero stories like we always are accustomed to seeing. Like we said last week, this is kind of like their Legion of the MCU, and I kind of like that we got like this deep character study with some action sprinkled in and at the finale, of course. Kind of like how WandaVision kind of gave us that kind of like, okay, here's your MCU action set piece to end this big character study of a show that we've given you up until that point. I thought this show did exactly that, wrapping up the story that it's telling, and also gave us little sprinkles of stuff to look forward to, hopefully in the future.
Yeah, and I think this I mean, hoping that we get a second season or we get bigger features of Mark, Steven, Moon Knight, Mr. Knight type of thing in the future. I think this was important to have a season like this,
Yeah.
to really care about this character, because if all we had was like, action and not a lot of what you've been saying, like character study and deep character study, not just character study, but really deep character study, it wouldn't really be a character that, like, we really want to have longevity in the MCU with type of thing.
Yeah.
But now it is.
And
Now he is.
yeah, and he's a tricky character to do all these action pieces for, because when he puts that suit on, he's pretty overpowered, like in every sense of the word. Like, you can't really kill him because he can just heal right away. So there's not many threats that you can just throw it at him to just give him a Moon Knight suit set piece every single episode. So they had to really like put the action in where it mattered, and I thought they did that pretty well.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I mean, yeah, if he doesn't have an opponent that's as leveled up as he is, then it's not even a fair fight, because in the quick action sequences we did have throughout the episode, we saw him taking out henchmen like it was nothing. Like,
Hey, just mows right through this dude.
yeah, so like you can't just have mindless action sequences, because like you said, he's too overpowered to the point where it's like, he's got to have a worthy opponent. So you have to take all this time to not only build his character, but build his opponent's character up, so you understand why this villain is on the same level as him too. So I think they did a really good job at that, and I cannot wait to see, even if we don't get another season, I cannot wait to see where he ends up in future MCU projects. Like I said, I'm still hoping we get a second season, but if we don't, even if we do, I cannot wait to see where he can end up in the MCU properties moving forward, because I think
100%.
he can be put in with a lot of different things. I mean, we're hoping for a Midnight Suns, but
yeah. We'll get into that stuff for sure.
Yeah. Before we get too ahead of ourselves, you want to do some big takeaways?
Let's do it.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna kick us off, and I feel like this is just a tagline: Moon Knight's back, and he can fly.
Yeah.
I wrote that in. I wrote that in as it was happening, and I was watching the episode, and I was just like,
They fly now! They fly now? They fly now!
I'm not. And
I had to look it up.
Yeah, I have been, saying this throughout. I have not been coming from a huge comic background. I know you have, and that's why I've kind of deferred to you a lot of times with comic references and asked you questions about comic references a lot. But just in my catching up, a lot of people kind of compared Moon Knight to almost like a Batman.
Yeah.
Yes, he has abilities, so he's a little bit more superpowered than Batman. He still kind of had, like, he had a Moon Knight copter, and he had like vehicles type of thing, because he wasn't like Superman type of thing, like where Superman can
pretty much even had a butler that was like his buddy.
Right.
Yeah.
So and Mr. Knight was the detective, which is also another nod to Batman.
All these different aspects,
right?
Were all combined. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So I even had to ask you, like, has he ever been able to fly? Like, the lead into that scene is another place that I had to bring up, and this kind of just ties into the Moon Knight is back. Is the scene where we get, Mark in the field of reeds, and he says, like, I can't enjoy my afterlife knowing that Steven is lost in the sands. Like,
Right.
I can't choose this happiness knowing he has to, just be lost forever type of thing. So he chooses to leave, which is, I mean, a big deal. And we get that really heartfelt speech from him, which Steven doesn't even get to hear, but we get them like kind
We
of
kind of heard it because he goes, "Trust me, it wasn't long," or whatever he said, or it wasn't
yeah,
a short speech or whatever it was.
yeah.
Which I thought was really great.
Yeah, absolutely. But we got them kind of really showing that they now care for each other a lot.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a very important scene. But we got
Yeah, I loved
one part that just made me laugh. And it made me laugh because it came from the person that I didn't think it would come from. So Steven, we know, has been kind of the expert on Egyptian lore and Egyptian history and mythology and all of this throughout the season. I mean, he works at a museum, and so he's all this time has been basically explaining this stuff to Mark. And so instead of calling her Taweret or saying thank you so much, Taweret, or anything like that, there's a scene where she kind of helps and she goes, "Run for the door, boys! You've done, like, get back."
Yeah.
He just goes,
Now run! Hippo! Go, go!
it just made me laugh. And when I had the song officially out of my head, that immediately just put it right back in my head.
Hippopotamus, hippopotamus, hippopotamus.
And is now just gonna live in my head rent free forever. But that was absolutely like my one favorite, just like shining moment of the episode. And like I said, I really enjoyed this finale as a whole anyway. And there's no parts that I didn't like, but just that just made me laugh, just chuckle out loud at it, and just I thought it was perfect. I just thought it was just a funny little second thing to put in there that just made me laugh, and I thought it was perfect. But anyway, before I go too long, Rico, what were some of your big takeaways from this finale?
So I think it was like a week or two ago, I talked about how the way I saw this show ending was, of course, the big showdown that we got between Moon Knight and Harrow, who was now officially an avatar as of this episode. But I also said that at the same time this was going on, I wanted to see some cool stuff with the gods going down. And boy, oh boy, did we get some cool god on god like violence, basically, with Ammit and Khonshu just kind of going toe to toe with each other. I didn't expect to see two giant gods fighting in the middle of Cairo, basically, which was like one of the coolest visual things you could ever give me. First of all, like Ammit looked fantastic as far as like the CG and stuff like that. The way they kind of gave it like this like weird like feminine crocodile look, real like humanoid body, and it looks completely realistic and stuff like that. Like the CG is just like so well done. So like they really pick and chose the spots to use like that part of their budget in really great ways, of course. But yeah, we get like these great avatar versus avatar fight while we're also getting like these god versus god fights. It kind of leads into my second point, which is we got a third avatar in play now, which was Layla as Taweret's avatar, which I thought was really cool. We got to see her in a badass new suit, which of course is a nod to a character in the books called the Scarlet Scarab, which of course, if you know the character's name, it's kind of where her whole lineage comes from. I personally did not know about this character until like probably 15 minutes before we started recording. So when I kind of learned that there was actually some like precedence behind this character, I was actually a little bit more impressed with it because I thought they were just kind of like giving her powers to give her powers. And I was like, okay, no, there's a reason for it, even if there wasn't a character already based around it. But the fact that there already was one and you can now do something with it going forward, I thought that was even, again, Marvel just doing these are deep cut characters that these guys are pulling at us now. And yeah, like now it just makes me want to learn even more about the stuff that I thought I knew a good amount of, but now it turns out I don't know jack crap. All right. So like now I just want to start learning more about the Scarlet Scarab or whatever they call her, or I guess her father is kind of like the basis of that character in the books. I think it's like a World War II character, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I need to know more about this Scarab character now. Dang it.
I have to say just a couple of things on this. I love that it's Taweret's avatar, like that
Mhm.
Layla is Taweret's avatar, because I loved the interaction before she agrees to be the avatar, and she's talking
Oh.
through.
Oh, it's the same like great acting that I was praising
Yeah,
Oscar Isaac for. That I think it was episode 2 or 3 when they did like the whole gods thing. He's like, "He's not the demon" or whatever.
yeah.
And like they did the same thing, but
'Cause she's like taking on the
yeah.
characteristics, like, oh,
And
it's
then
so perfect.
Taweret taking over the dead bodies and talking
Yeah,
to them. Like I thought that was really funny. And I like how they changed their voice to her voice as opposed
yes,
to like them just talking as themselves.
yeah. It was
So yeah, I thought that was really great.
I love that part. And then I really liked the little side just quick snippet thing where there's the little girl and she goes, "Are you an Egyptian superhero?"
Yeah.
And she goes, "Yes, I am." Like,
Yes, I am.
I just really liked
Oh
that.
yeah.
Like
Yeah, that
that
was really cool.
in the middle of the action, like she's rescuing Layla's rescuing people from the van that are in the
Yeah.
way of destruction and stuff. And then just that little aside scene, I just thought it was just a moment of you know having a now Egyptian superhero, but like just stopping everything in the middle of that and asking. It was just perfect. I
Yeah,
loved
I
the way.
can't wait. I can't wait for 10 years later in our lives when we're talking about that little girl and what character she becomes because she saw Layla. She saw Layla
Oh,
fighting on the streets of Cairo, right?
we have to
Like
remember this. Mark
yeah,
this video as
it's
evidence.
like when we found out that Tom Holland Spider-Man was that little boy in Iron Man 2, you know?
Yep, yep, yep.
So yeah, there you go.
All right, all right. So it's only fitting that we go out. The last big takeaway of the series is a big reveal. So without further ado, boom! Big reveal. A new character has entered the playground. We finally have Jake Lockley. And this was in
Yes.
our post-credit scene. So if I had to be wrong about what our post-credit scene was going to be, I am glad that this was the reason I was wrong. That we finally got
Hmm.
the third altar, basically.
Yeah.
And we saw Jake Lockley actually talk, and now we know that, Jake is a part of this. It's not just flashes anymore and disappearance of time. Now we have Jake Lockley here and evidence. And not only that, but he speaks Spanish, which I thought was very, very interesting.
Mhm.
And I was I was wondering because there's this confused look on Harrow's face right as Jake turns around and Khonshu introduces him. And he looks confused, and I know he's just looking confused because he didn't know that there was another altar. But it just made me think really quick.
You know I don't speak Spanish. In English, please.
And I just wondered for a split second, I was like, did Haro just like blink at not being able to speak Spanish? And
I was thinking more like when Brick looks at Adam and she goes, "You're not Ron."
for a post-credit scene, that was absolutely incredible. I mean,
Fantastic.
there were plenty of things in there because, like I said, and I will 100% defer to you because I know you can touch more on the Jake Lockley altar as as the comic book references to him and stuff like that. I do know he was a driver, like a cab driver, but in this it was a limo, and I know having Spectre on the license plate and being a big white limo, that is a nod to the comics also because Mr. Knight had a limo with Spectre as the
That's
license
exactly
plate.
what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, because I saw that in another article and how that was a link to the thing. So I'm really hoping that this leads to somewhere else because of how they left off with the other two altars now kind of unaware of the third altar, Jake Lockley. So I'm really hoping there's some sort of continuation with that because I'd really like to see that now, and see what the post is of that. But I wanted to give you a chance to kind of share a little bit more about Jake Lockley just because I don't really know a lot about him in general. But I did know that he was the third altar, and we've been seeing bits and pieces of missing time and stuff from Mark and Steven and them not knowing what was going on and stuff like that.
The stuff I loved about that reveal, of course, was one, you're seeing Khonshu in the Mr. Knight suit, which I thought was kind of like a really cool. That's a nod to the comics as well, because we do see Khonshu in a suit in some forms of that storyline, the one I keep mentioning before. But of course, yeah, like bringing in Jake as like the cabbie, but in this case, kind of like the chauffeur for Khonshu is a great way to kind of integrate that character into this whole MCU story. And of course, like he's clearly has no problem being Khonshu's fist of vengeance, basically. Like where we can see that come into play going forward, there's a few different options. The first one I'll say before we get into predictions is I think what we have the Halloween special coming up in October, which is the Werewolf by Night. Which I don't think they've specifically confirmed that is Werewolf by Night, but there is a werewolf character in the show. So we know there's a path there for the next appearance coming later on this year, possibly.
Very cool. Very cool. Oh, I did want to make note of something. So I was looking like crazy for QR codes.
Oh.
And I don't know if this one is one, only because I didn't have a chance to scan it. But in that post-credit scene, they are going down the hallways, and it's really fixed on Arthur in the wheelchair being wheeled out, because this is before the reveal at all. So really, we're just seeing hands on. But there's a scene where they turn a corner in the hospital, and there is a flyer on the wall that has a very small QR code, but it's like kind of sideways. So like I couldn't like scan it on my phone. So I was gonna bring it up on the TV, bring it up really big, and I didn't have a chance to. But if anyone out there did scan it, let us know if it does point to a comic issue, because I didn't catch the one last episode, but there was one last episode.
Yeah.
So I was really looking. Like I watched it a second time, and I was like, I gotta.
There's a different comic issue, I think, too, but I forgot which one they said it was.
It was a different comic issue last time, which means like I think there's probably another one. This might be it. I just didn't have a chance to scan it, but I wanted to make note of it because I know I saw it. Like I was looking for them this time.
Yeah.
But you want to get into predictions?
Let's do it.
Awesome. You want to kick us off?
Okay, so the way we basically end the show is, Mark and Steven are back at Steven's flat back in London, right? I think it's kind of funny how Mark comments on how like crappy the place looks and stuff like that, which of course now when you see Jake in the limo that says Spectre, I think that Mark clearly has like access to more wealth out there than we are, of course, led to believe. Of course, in the beginning of the show, we saw his like kind of storage shed that he had, like, the weapons and a lot of money and stuff like that from like other countries. But basically, like, okay, so Mark and Steven are free essentially, but the body is not free of Khonshu. They kind of had that one scene when it was, again, one of the cooler aspects to me was just seeing Moon Knight in a daylight setting. So when they're out there and they're talking with Khonshu, that whole thing has to do with them kind of like, renegotiating their deal, stuff like that. And, Khonshu kind of just like agrees, like, okay, I'll free you two. But like, in his head, he's like, I still got Jake, like he's probably the reason why Jake was in that red sarcophagus in Mark's inner mental asylum. So knowing that he still had like this other card at play, as leverage is going to be where I think the journey continues going forward. Of course, like obviously Mark and Steven are going to not be Moon Knight and Mr. Knight anymore in the MCU. So there's got to be that thread that brings us back to it. And Jake is going to be that thread. I talked about him possibly appearing in the Werewolf by Night special. But I think also the next logical place that he could show up is in the Blade movie. Because if we're going to tie in all the Midnight Suns character, if you have Black Knight in there, which was of course Kit Harington's character in Eternals, you can have Moon Knight show up at some point. If Oscar Isaac wants to do that quicker, or sooner rather than later, he's very adamant of being very choosy about what he does with this character. So I think if it fits, he'll do it. And I do think that whole thing with them redoing the tweets has to be leading to something, an announcement at some point. But yeah,
that leads perfectly into mine, because mine, I was totally focusing on those tweets because I took screenshots. I was like, holy shit! Like, does this they fixed their tweet? Like, They wouldn't have
Yeah,
done
it was
that.
like the Moon Knight one was series, and then the Marvel account was season or something like that.
And
I
then the
didn't see
Moon
if
Knight one went
they
back and
switched the
fixed
Moon Knight
it.
one. I didn't
Yeah.
check to see if they switched the Moon Knight one.
It
Okay,
went
yeah.
back and fixed it after the Marvel one tweeted season instead of series. So
Yeah, I think very interesting play by them.
it is very interesting. And that, I mean, that leads kind of my prediction. And it's not so much a prediction, it's just more of like I hope we get a second season, because like I was saying earlier, there are a lot of things that we could go into that would be really cool to explore. Like, I think the way that they had, Mark and Steven wake up, like the start of the season, is incredible. I thought that was perfect, because now it's like we know what's going on.
Two goldfish.
Yeah, two goldfish. We had Steven saying, "You got to get up, or I'm going to be late for work," like type of thing. Like, just see, like, being able to like start a season like that, and then all of a sudden, those two finding out that they're not alone, like, would be an incredible. Like, I hope it happens quicker, but just starting it out that way, I think, would be an incredible way to start a season 2. Almost identical episode, like first episodes type of thing. But just getting quicker into them figuring out, okay, something's going on. There is something, like, we've been through this before, like getting deja vu almost. And then them, maybe one of them discovering that they can still summon a suit, meaning that they're not out of this yet, type of thing. And I could just see that happening, but I think it would be a perfect way to start a second season, is almost having an identical first episode. But with the two of them now together. But I also, I would love to see Moon Knight show up in conjunction with Black Knight or Blade or both type of thing. We do know that Kit Harington's character is also in the general vicinity, because he's also working at a museum and in the UK London area type of thing. So they're close. And we know from that post-credit scene in Eternals that Blade was visiting him. So it's pretty logical step to that. Like, we could get these three people together because they're kind of relatively close at certain points. But I would love to see that. I look, at this point, I understand that Oscar Isaac doesn't want to get, super tied into something, like getting like years and years and years stuck on.
He doesn't want to get Poe Dameron again.
Right.
Yeah.
But I hope that he chooses to continue with certain Moon Knight. Like, I have no problem with him picking and choosing, because I think that makes the character stand out, like not just being flooded with the character. But I really do hope that we get a second season, and I would love to see him in like Werewolf by Night, or pop up in Blade or some other MCU properties where it makes sense. And I mean, I would love 5 years down the line for us to get a Midnight Suns, where we have kind of that more of a mystic arts.
Could be sooner than that too.
It could be, but like,
we know how much they're planning.
Exactly. I mean, you heard about the thing where Kevin Feige, they had a retreat, and they're planning out the next 10 years of Marvel stuff.
Yeah, the writers' retreat, which is like, imagine how fun that must be. Like, just a bunch of writers sitting there just going over all the future stuff. Like,
just to sit in the room with them.
Or just be like an Ant-Man on the wall in that room, please.
Oh, that would be incredible. But anyway, that's what we think. Let us know in the comments below. What did you think of this season finale? And are we going to get a second season? And if we do or don't, where do you think the next time we see Moon Knight pop up? Like, what property do you think we're going to see him pop up in next? I cannot wait either way. And don't forget, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to hear about all of our video releases. Bye, everybody!